Hello Internet, I'm Richie and welcome to Sounds of Stadia SideQuest, a show where we take a step off the critical path and explore more of what the video game world has to offer. And on this week's show, I'm joined by the host of Sounds of Stadia podcast, Mr. Chris.
Just the two of us. Dun, 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 dun.
And
Hello, everyone.
There's the copyright strike right there. It was a fantastic performance.
I miss
Tom. Tom, yeah, we miss Tom. He's on paternity leave. He's learning to become a dad. So congratulations to Tom for when his child was born, which at the time of recording isn't.
At the time of going live,
who knows?
maybe.
Well, our members might know, but
Beyonce.
a bit about that in a sec. Right, this week we're going to be discussing cross-generational game improvements. So we've seen a lot of games move from get releases on PS4, for example, and the PS5, and having improvements as they move across the generations. But before we get to that, first bit of housekeeping. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon for notifications, so you know when all of our content drops, such as the podcast, our Thursday night live streams, and our occasional first looks. And, well, fairly recently, all of our E3 coverage. Don't hit that icon. YouTube doesn't know you want it, despite the fact that you subscribe to the channel.
YouTube weird like that.
Yeah.
Don't say that; they'll kick us off.
They won't. We're too important.
Well,
if you want to support this channel, you can by joining our membership program, which starts from as little as 99p, which gives you early access to this very show, a whole 6 days early. It usually goes up on Sunday, pretty much as soon as I finish. And for everyone else, it launches on Friday. It supports the channel. You get little Stadia controllers next to your name when you live chats for emoji, and access to our emojis. I'm really stumbling over this intro today.
you couldn't read earlier on when we did the podcast.
When we record the podcast,
read.
I'd just woken up from a nap. It's like I was trying to read the show notes. It's like I just can't. I didn't know. If you want to join the discussion even further and mock me for my inability to read, you can do in our Discord server, which is there's a link to it in the below, or maybe mock us on Twitter if you want everyone in the world to see it. At Sounds of Stadia, at CyberChris277, at RichieC89, at AccessLB. So, cross-generational improvements. The interesting one, to start with, actually not a cross-generational improvement at all, but is the inspiration for this. And that's Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is coming to next-generation platform only. That does include Stadia.
Yeah, it's a weird one because, like, when we think of these side quest topics, it's usually what news stories are kind of big and relevant. And it dawned on me there was the trailer for Avatar went out on the official Stadia channel, and there was a couple of articles from Ubisoft explaining why it's fully next gen. And I think even when it was announced at the Ubisoft Forward event, you, me, and Tom all collectively said, like, is this the first next gen only announcement for like next year? And in and amongst all the other things that have had ports recently, we know Jedi Fallen Order 2 weeks ago, as this goes on free feeds, got its free port to PS5 and Xbox Series X. Control is coming to Stadia, and we know there's a next gen version of that. Madden 22 was announced recently for Stadia, which is wonderful news. But which version of it are we going to get? I basically think this conversation needs to centralize around where does Stadia sit in this category? It's almost, we said on another episode of SideQuest that it was almost like a next gen 0.5, a next gen Pro. It sits in the middle ground, but with Avatar, surely this is now fully next gen.
I mean, I'm sure this is not how developers think of it, but it seems like some developers think of it as previous gen, as next gen, and I'm not sure is in that grey area because it came out. It's a platform that came out so late in the. I'm going to refer to the generations right through the PlayStation naming. You can substitute it if you're more of an Xbox fan. It came out so late in the PS4 life cycle. But so it's kind of, unless you're Nintendo, it's a weird place to be. So in some, you could see this as the last of that generation or the first of the PS5 generation.
Yeah, and now this kind of sets it up for only being available on PS5, Series X, Stadia, and PC. Now bumps it into that conversation where I'd imagine the Stadia version is going to see all the bells and whistles that Ubisoft are touting as why Avatar Frontiers of Pandora will only be on those platforms. And that does shift Stadia for me into that next tier of like production value and stuff and features and all those like little tidbits they add on to say why this was only possible in this kind of housing.
What I think is Ubisoft have learned from CG projects with Cyberpunk basically being not playable on PS4 level console. Still, arguably, I don't think I know it's back on the store now, but only have kind of been you should probably play it on PS5 rather than PS4 if you actually want to play the game. So almost like they can't say don't buy it, but almost saying don't buy it. But,
So but
Cyberpunk ran perfectly well instead. There was bugs in the game, but there was bugs on the PC version of the game. But it ran smoothly. There wasn't like massive frame drops or where it's like the hardware where you think like, no, this hardware isn't good enough to run this game.
Yeah, it's very interesting. From the Game Rant article in itself, when they were speaking with IGN, the creative director from Massive who were making the game, and who are making the next Star Wars game as well. So I'm massive, no pun intended, massively looking forward to see what they do. But they explicitly said, arguably, in and amongst all this, its graphical improvement is obviously a key reason. Aside from being able to create a more detailed world, the two explain that with the flying being a major component of the game, flying confirmed, on the Banshees from the Avatar world, the stronger hardware can allow for the world of Pandora to look good even when soaring at high speeds. The flying Banshees are another memorable and key aspect of the original movie, etc., etc. And then he eventually gets on to saying it's not just that. Thanks to the newer consoles, processing power, it hopes to create a far more organic map to explore than previous open world games, as well as more intuitive AI. Pandora will be populated with all manner of wildlife, and the team wishes to take full advantage of the power of the Snowdrop engine to create NPCs that leave a much more direct impact on the environment, just as the player does. Ultimately, it's all about immersion. All of that, so the game can truly make players believe that they are exploring the same world that they see in the Avatar movies.
Interesting, because we're both from a generation of gamers who remember when Fog of War wasn't an artistic choice; it was it was a necessity in games. So it's like draw distance and the quality of textures and stuff. It's just even worse at high speeds, because if you're traveling at high speeds in the game, that's got all that everything going past needs to be rendered quickly. So it might just be, I'm guessing, with decision was made like, well, the current for what we want to do. The current platforms aren't powerful enough to do it. The fact that it is coming to Stadia suggests that Stadia met the criteria for what the basic minimum requirements of hardware to run this game how they want it to run. The skeptical and the cynical part of my mind says it's not going to be. Put PC aside. PC is a weird bag because it depends on your hardware. Because you could have a decent gaming PC, then not be able to run PC isn't. But I suspect the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions will probably be prettier than the Stadia version. But the Stadia version will be competent.
Yeah. And that's kind of the end. Again, you don't have to drop £400 on a console to get a competent version of the game. We saw that with Cyberpunk. For me, talking about this now, like as we move forward and like obviously newer games come out that are exclusively PS5 and Xbox Series X, it does just open up the fact that like Stadia is competing in this market, and in a way, I know we covered it a lot in last week's SideQuest talking about all the Xbox improvements. Do Ubisoft know something we don't know about this Google Stadia 2.0 server blade conversation going on?
A hell of a lot more than we do. If
we know they're one of the biggest supporters.
I think if you look at, I'd almost argue that Ubisoft are a strategic partner of Stadia's at this point. In fact, on Ubisoft's website, I was looking earlier today about Ubisoft Plus because getting there.
Rainbow Six.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the prices, and there's a section on the Ubisoft Plus website about gaming in Stadia. That could be because Luna's not formally released yet.
Mm-hmm.
But Stadia's on Ubisoft's website. That was a little bit of a surprise from me. But yeah.
Indeed.
But going back to servers, I've always been one where I don't think a Stadia 2.0 is a real thing. To be honest, I think it's going to be a small incremental upgrade. Probably never been told about.
Yeah, we've theorized and spoke about this before, and we know like different members of the community have different takes on this, and podcasters and such aside as well. But for me personally, when we spent a whole episode last week talking about Microsoft coming out swinging, announcing they're upgrading to Series X server blades, and then the conversation about game quality, it does come back on. Google have always said they can improve the hardware from their end gradually, and they'll do that. And I think John Justice's interview explicitly said, we'll just do it stealthily and we won't tell people. Yeah, which again, they're not going to make a statement, let the games speak for themselves. And I think from this, Ubisoft...
occasionally, though.
Oh yeah, 100% occasionally. But I think with this leads me to believe that Ubisoft do know that next-gen server blades are coming, and that's what's allowing them to build Avatar in line with PS5 and Series X.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's entirely possible that Stadia upgrades some of their servers to a quote-unquote next-gen server blade, and not all of them. So something like a game that, pick a random game that's alright, Valhalla may still be running at the same quality, but Avatar might be on the newer server blade. Without knowing without having a 100% working grasp of everything that to do with Stadia's infrastructure, I can't really say if that's viable or not. But it feels like it should be. So yeah, it is entirely possible that Ubisoft, this game, when does it come out?
You just said 2022.
22, yeah. So like next year. Maybe it is. Maybe that's where targeting the release date for this game to do a upgrade of all the sets. By then, we're looking probably 3 years at the beginning of the mission.
Yeah, exactly. Making moves. But the kind of crux of all this was because all of the other improvements we've got, I mentioned it at the beginning, Jedi Fallen Order. I recently played that again on my PlayStation 5. So I played it on PlayStation 4 to utter completion. Played it on Stadia when it dropped from EA. And I've gone back again because it's got a next-gen port. And just reading from the article as well, it says, obviously all of these, it's almost like just a performance boost mode. They come with slicker visuals, faster frame rate, and usually there's an option to pick between 60 frames per second or visual 4K, sometimes quality. It runs fantastic. Obviously, it was a free upgrade as well. The biggest thing for me is that then leads me to think, with the Stadia version, do we only ever get the base version of these games? So is Jedi Fallen Order on Stadia always going to be the PS4 and Xbox One version? Or will we see that get incremental free upgrades in line with these other console platforms?
I don't know. I think what you're going to see is it's going to vary from publisher to publisher. I could see if Ubisoft did something like that, I could see Ubisoft upgrading the game. But Jedi Fallen Order's EA, isn't it? I'm not sure EA would yet. EA, I think, are on a trajectory, like a recovery trajectory, where they're actually going to start getting more credibility back. Mm-hmm. I think Jedi Fallen Order is a perfect example of a game that EA published that did really well. There was no stupid microtransaction. You didn't have to pay extra to get a green lightsaber. They didn't didn't feel like they cut out half the game to sell you as DLC. There was no tacked on multiplayer trying to sell you season pass. It was just, he's a fantastic single player. Enjoy.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's an interesting one. I know loads of our friends out there in the content creator world, Cloud Gaming Extreme, our friend Jem, they do comparison videos of certain platforms, and it's funny because when you watch the side-by-side videos, sometimes you can barely even tell. I'm not a big graphic fidelity. I think games have looked beautiful for absolute years now. I think earlier this year, or may have been last year now, I went back and played Arkham Asylum, and that game still looks great. I didn't don't get me wrong, it wasn't current standards, but it didn't look terrible. But with these games, I'm starting to feel like with a few of them, we kind of, I think with Stadia, it's very much they port it across and it's done, especially for the single player stuff. There's no reason for the developers to go back because there's not really an audience clambering for it. With the Jedi Fallen Order PS5, how many people will have picked up a PS5, potentially never played Jedi Fallen Order, and now they're going to get in and purchase the best version that game's possibly got out there? With
Well,
Stadia, I don't think that audience is there, unfortunately, so there's no
what
reason to.
what we've kind of learned over the last like 2 years, basically, most ports to Stadia are the PC version, which,
Hmm.
and then they just kind of block off a lot of the settings. So PC, anyone that's been in PC gaming knows when you go into graphics settings on a console, do you want performance? Do you want visuals? That's your choice. You have one toggle usually, apart from things like brightness and stuff. PC, you have a plethora of options. Basically, I think the developers port the PC version, mess around with the toggles till they get it working, and then lock it out. I think you're getting the best performing version that you can, assuming the developers aren't being lazy in the ports, that they're putting time and effort to give you the best performing experience they can on the platform. So that would require, I assume, then an upgrade to the servers.
Yeah.
But if, like, let's say 2022, Stadia have upgraded the servers, we do get the mythical 2.0. Do EA care at that point to upgrade Jedi Fallen Order? Do they think
I
they'll
don't think
see
they
a
do.
return in that, or they're happy to just leave it be?
Yeah.
That's the question I think every developer will be asking them.
Yeah,
Because
it's an interesting one.
yeah, it is entirely possible that that they go, okay, what we're going to do is think we can get some more sales. So what we'll do is we'll just up the game. We'll unlock
Mhm.
on the back end. We'll mess on with our sliders. We'll maybe activate features that Stadia doesn't currently sing.
Mhm.
Does Jedi Fallen Order have ray tracing? It feels like it.
I think so. It's got flashy
I mean,
lightsabers. I'm
yeah,
pretty
it's
sure
like
that was a
yeah,
thing.
that's what I was thinking with lightsabers. Like you can't.
Mhm. With the world that
Yeah,
like that galaxy universe that exists, there's plenty of like with the planets and light speed. There's so much to play around with there. You mentioned a good point there about Stadia quite often gets the PC version. We know with Cyberpunk that was the case, and that brings a great point that one of the other titles we do know that is coming is Madden NFL 22 from also from EA. This is again going to be a cross-generation platform. It's going to be out on all consoles, PS4s, one forwards, backwards, whatever it may be. We don't quite know what the Stadia version is. So looking at like reading around a few of the articles, naturally EA and the PlayStation stuff, they're all pushing their brand new tech. So PC fans apparently are quite upset to discover that the Madden NFL 22 PC version will be the last gen quote unquote version and missing next gen features EA is touting for the PS5 and Series
that
X.
seems utterly ridiculous for PC. It's like again, I mentioned all the weird sliders. Usually you get the unfettered version on PC, and then you have to fiddle with settings to get it running on your hardware. That's the life of a PC gamer. In the first 30 minutes of any game, fiddling with settings.
Yeah. So then this kind of like ties in nicely. So we know Avatar is next gen because it's only coming out on PS5,
Yeah.
Series X, Luna, and Stadia and PC. This one is cross. It's going to be out on every platform it possibly can get its kind of mitts on. So further in the article, they say EA has explained the reason is because it's focusing on next gen consoles. So now, again, I we'll get to it at the end, but essentially in the article it says they've announced EA lists a number of next gen features coming to PS5 Series X versions of the game. So they've not clarified with Stadia that wouldn't include last gen. These features include next gen stats, more refined AI, stadium atmosphere, and improved movement, with most of these part of the dynamic game day feature the publisher is adding to make the latest Madden more exciting and realistic. Unfortunately, the PC version will be PS4, Xbox One, and not next gen. So
It
obviously
seems
disappointment
bizarre.
there. But in a nutshell, my question to you, I guess, Richie, is which version does Stadia get? It's getting Avatar, which is purely next gen, but it's getting Madden. So is it easier to port old
My
version or new?
my
Like it's such a
assumption
weird.
is
Hmm.
if they can't be bothered to put the effort in to get the next gen version running on PC, we're getting the
Yeah,
PC version.
yeah,
It seems
that's
such a bizarre. What? Why? Like EA? Why? Just why? Like I really don't get it because things like I remember Tomb Raider, the 2013 one. There was features in that in the PC version that didn't exist in it was like the Xbox 360 PS3 version because they were like because that's where usually developers mess around with the tech because they can, and this is why you get sliders and toggles and stuff. Like ray tracing is usually a toggle in most modern games and PC. So if you're compatible, if you've got compatible hardware and PC, you can turn it on, or you can turn it off. Make that choice. So it seems absolutely bizarre that they port in older versions. Like nowadays, most consoles are basically modified PCs anyway, with their own operating systems on. Yeah. So usually, game developers will develop on a PC or a Mac. It's like
there is a glimmer of a ray tracing glimmer of hope. That an EA Sports representative has said it's something being explored in the future. We're still early in the transition to next gen, and right now the team is focused on making the best quality experiences on new consoles before looking to upgrade other platforms. So while it does say that there might be a patch potentially for the PC version, or
maybe it's
in the future,
maybe it's a case of the PS4, Xbox One, PC version is done already, and then we're going to spend all the time between like when that was done and release working on the PS5 version.
Yeah.
It seems weird that you wouldn't just have that on PC.
Yeah, we should also point out that the future obviously could mean just Madden 23 as well as this one getting a patch.
Almost feels like these are, instead of just a game with the settings tweaked, it feels like there's literally two very discrete builds of it. Which makes sense when you get like things like the physics engines and stuff are different. Seems a weird way to go about it.
Yeah. It's a curious one.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that I think Stadia are probably going to get the PC, therefore inferior version. But I guess
this feels like a slight return to bad EA where they've just pissed off all the PC players. But I get there's probably not as many PC players of things like Madden and these compared to console market, but you've just some people have spent probably thousands of pounds on like RTX 3090 managed to get their hands on. Looking forward to getting the best experience of Madden and.
So that's kind of the next big game point. The only other two articles that I guess for us to touch on is Control. We know that Stadia is getting Control. Maybe even soon. Maybe at the time of listening, it might have been announced as a pro game for July to our free feed listeners. But yeah, Control Ultimate Edition also got that free port over to PS5 Series X. So again, Richie, the question is, does Stadia get the next-gen version, or does it get... It's so weird how every game is such a different take, isn't it? Because they're different types of games developed at different... Like, this game has already existed.
I have the next-gen version of Control on PS5. And in the graphical setting, it's basically the main difference you notice is ray tracing turned on.
Right.
I don't think we'll get that. We won't. Stadia at the moment, I don't think it's compatible with ray tracing. There's rumours that it is getting worked on though. Might not be that far off.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to probably get the PS4 Pro version of it.
Right.
I don't think we'll get full PS5.
It's an interesting one because if memory serves me right, playing Control on my PS4 Pro, the game chugged a little bit. The console was struggling to get it running at the frame rate you wanted to, and there was a little bit of pop-in with textures sometimes.
I don't think we'll get that. We might actually get the PS5 performance mode version, and maybe take away the toggle, which I would be perfectly happy with.
Yeah, all of that they've clearly been working on since Control released in 2019. So the fact that they've had 2 years to get to this point where they're now making a Stadia version. I'd be curious to know which version runs on Luna, actually, because we're probably under the impression we're getting a similar take to... And it's been out on Luna now for a few months, in US only.
If anyone's got it on Luna, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, do so. And I guess the final game then, Richie, the reason that sparked this whole conversation was earlier in the week I read an article that said Metro Exodus is getting an enhanced edition. And that in my mind was like, I wonder if Stadia will get an enhanced edition as well, because I do remember we have Exodus in our libraries.
All the Metro games are on
So,
Stadia, so possible.
but do they try and repackage it, or is it where it's weird because they don't have a physical version. So I think a lot of these games that have got next gen things, they will benefit from you going to a store physically. There is the new consoles, all the promo art and the posters and such, the window displays is all there. You having your game in a repackaged format allows you and all these Jedi Fallen Order, Control, Metro to go back at the top of the shelf as a new release.
Yeah.
With Stadia being just in the cloud, I don't feel like having an enhanced version would really benefit them that much.
Yeah, I think some of the Metro games have been pro games as well, so I don't know. It depends what if they think. Again, all this stuff, it comes down to money. If they think bringing the pro game, the updated version over to Stadia, is going to be profitable for them, they'll do it.
But, yeah, I think that's... again, business comes down to money, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of this conversation have the caveat of not game developers really know the process of how a game is ported, the complexities. So I'd imagine it seems, from what I can gather, it seems to be more labor intensive than I suspected.
Yeah,
and something like that is, even if it's profitable, you're taking people off other projects to do it.
Yeah, just reading from the Eurogamer article as well, they have implemented quite a lot of perks to do with the DualSense controller. It looks like they've kind of tested the waters a little bit with what magic they can make that do. But from the article itself, it just says, ultimately, Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition is a simply stunning game, and it's astonishing to see a developer double down on ray tracing so early in the generation. From my perspective, the reviewer, the gamble pays off. Side by side with the last gen rendition, there's a night and day improvement in the quality of the visuals, whilst absolutely nobody can complain about the 30 frames per second shooter transitioning to 60 while delivering this huge improvement to the overall quality. This is a sensational release from 4A Games, and it goes without saying that I recommend it across all platforms. Which we should point out, when we did a live stream of Metro way back when in Tom's old flat, we were blown away by some of the visuals from the landscape and stuff. There was parts that looked really bad as well.
That was a weird thing. There's I remember there was a point when we were crawling under a log or something, and the textures on the floor looked terrible.
Oh, bad, yeah.
Then you looked at the horizon and it looked amazing. It's just felt graphically unbalanced.
But this guy seems thrilled by this enhanced version, so it could give it a new lease of life. But again, from a Stadia point of view, I think out of all the games we could, I'm sure there's one or two games that have had next gen ports and improvements that we've missed out. But looking at that list, we know we're getting Avatar. Madden, I think, is going to be the PC version. The way I think Stadia is going to be upgraded, I genuinely think it'll just be as and when we move away from the last gen. We'll just get day one titles eventually, but I don't think we can see much change for these ports.
I think the rule of thumb is, at the moment for me, is we'll get the PC version and we'll get the best version, that the best settings that the your mileage may vary depending on publisher to how much do a Stadia.
Yeah.
But with that,
Avatar.
I'm getting more and more interested now. My initial thing my initial when I saw it, was like, my initial response, I think, was, why they're making an Avatar? Why they're making more Avatar movies?
Well, that's it. I'm more interested in the game than the new movies.
Yeah,
because the game, I get to live and play in a beautiful world. Like Avatar, all things credited, the world of Pandora is stunning.
That's what's got me interested. As I thought about, actually, no, you've got a stunning world that feels like it should have a deep, rich lore that just isn't explored. It was explored a bit in the first movie, but I always remember the first movie more of a showcase rather than. I can't remember the plot of that movie, but I can remember it stunning, put it that way.
Yeah, and I know I've said it a few times. I think when we watched the Ubisoft Forward with Tom, but when we talk about the world of Pandora, Disney World, Florida, if you ever get a chance to go, Animal Kingdom, there is a whole section dedicated to Pandora. And if you get a chance to YouTube it, Richie, they've done the whole area. You literally walk into that world. All the vegetation, the flowers, it's all made to look like Pandora, to a point where they've got huge scale waterfalls and mountains that are designed to look like they're floating in the sky, similar to the movie. And the ride is amazing, and it just, you get so immersed. It's like, I couldn't give a shit about the Na'vi or anything like that, but just being, I felt like I was on an alien planet, especially at nighttime. So the fact that there's a whole game with, they've said in the article, beautiful visuals and smart AI, I'm just looking forward to playing around that world, regardless of what the movie ends up being. So, and Ubisoft makes stunning visuals. We've seen that with Valhalla and the rest.
There's something fascinating about exploring a world and uncovering what this world's all about. It reminds me of stuff like that. I always go back to my mind of Horizon Zero Dawn. That was one of the brilliant things about that game was uncovering what happened. Like, yeah, and also they have done the best audio logs in any game ever so far. Every game should have audio logs like them. You can go to the thing, click on the audio log, and it plays while you continue playing the game. You don't have to sit there and read a menu. Yeah, that's a side quest and a side quest for you there. It's just something since Horizon Zero Dawn, any like audio logs or random like lore dumps and stuff that you can just pick up in the world have always annoyed me because they do it worse.
Yeah, that's agreed.
Yeah,
maybe we'll see it one day. PC part of Horizon.
Maybe we will. But until then, that's all we have time for you this week. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notification for when our content drops, because YouTube won't tell you unless you do. Memberships start from as little as 99p, which you can get this all. If you sat there on a Friday looking forward to SideQuest, you could have listened to it on Sunday. Don't forget to check out the Stadia podcast and our first live streams, which I think, if right, it is going to be Rainbow Six Siege.
Should be.
Yeah. Go in the discussion even further in our Discord. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds of Stadia, at CyberChris, at Richie C, and send Thompson while he's on his potato at AdaxisLP. Thank you very much for watching.
What's the hashtag?
Oh yeah.
We can do a different one for SideQuest.
Yeah. Nah, we'll keep the same. We'll keep the same one. Okay. So as I said people homework in the main podcast. Here, why I bring the doc because I don't have it in front of me. What we're going to decide doing is no one tell Tom what we're doing here. Every week we homework where you have to tweet them. And this week the hashtag is hashtag I miss you.
Yeah, we're just going to slowly add more hashtags in. Maybe we should chain them. So by the point it's like week 50.
We don't want to make because imagine that you sat there. I miss you. It's fine. I miss you. Love you lots. True, yeah. I miss you. Love you lots. How's your day going? Yeah, it just gets longer and longer. Yeah. Twitter only has so many characters. But with that, I've been Richie.
I've been Chris.
Thank you very much for watching. Quest completed.